Hi guys. So I don't really know what to call this video because it's kind of lessons 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. It's all of them. It's all the rest of it. It basically ended at lesson 14. That was the last chapter and the last workbook pages you had to do. But we still have to finish up our adventure stories. So this lesson, this video is kind of just for everything at the end, okay? So it's gonna be just a jumble of a lot of different pages and a lot of different lessons that I'm kind of just combining all together so we could finish up our stories and finish this unit. So first thing is lesson 15 was supposed to be the test, okay? So there's lesson 15, page 1. This starts on page 125. If you were practicing the spelling words and you want a parent or sibling or somebody to test you on those spelling words, you can definitely do that. You do not have to, okay? And then the test itself started on page 127. Like I said in the previous video for lesson 14, it's like the big long tests that we used to tear out, and I would staple them all together for you guys. And there was a separate section for reading comprehension where it was long passages, okay, and then questions about that passage, and then more questions and writing, and then another reading passage, long reading passages, more questions and writing, more questions. Okay, and then there was a writing prompt, and then there was another section of the test. It was the grammar section, so all the different present tense verbs, modal auxiliaries, combining them using relative pronouns, and coordinating conjunctions, and if they need commas or not, so all those skills that we learned in this unit. And the morphology, so the vocabulary words and suffixes and prefixes that we learned, okay? So you don't have to do any of that. If you would like to for practice, go for it. I'm not gonna grade it like a regular test, right? So don't worry about it, no stress. If you want the practice, do it. If you don't want to, fine, it's optional. Okay, so after that is lesson 16. In lesson 16, we are planning a conclusion to your adventure story. So totally changing gears, no more tests, our adventure stories, okay? But before that, I wanted everybody to flip back a lot of pages, all the way to page 71, okay? So I'm gonna zoom in a little bit here, so you can see this. This was the rubric that we had talked about way back in lesson 8 of this unit, okay? So this is what I would have been grading your adventure stories on if we were actually in school. At home, it's hard to, I can't read your stuff as you go along and give you, advice and feedback for your writing, and we can't share with our partners and our table group. So, I'm not gonna be, I wanna read your stories and I'm excited to read them, and I'll definitely, use them towards your satisfactory or unsatisfactory grades in CKLA for fourth quarter, but it's not like I'm gonna look at every single thing. But anyway, this rubric is what you should be looking at as you go through and finish your body of your story and your conclusion of your story to become a better writer. Okay, so when we looked at this rubric the first time, we had talked about just the introduction of your story and how you could get 4 or 3 points by doing these things, okay? So it was if the main characters are described, the setting is described, and the hook grabs the reader's attention. That would give you 3 or 4 points. If you did it creatively, and if you're creative about your setting and character descriptions and stuff, that would get you 4 points in those. But just describing your character's setting and grabbing the reader's attention would get you 3 points in all those. So introduction was done a long time ago. This section you should have started in lesson 13, I think, is when we started writing our body paragraph or our body of our story. So that's the main chunk of it. Remember, that's all the rising action points in that. Remember the little graph? Okay. So the story has a clear, interesting problem or conflict. The story includes at least 3 effective rising action events. So that was the 3, dots along the suspense line. The story proceeds in suspenseful logical sequence. So it's getting more suspenseful and it's getting more action-packed as it goes on. And the story has a clear, interesting climax or turning point. So at the end of your body, as you begin your conclusion, that's when, the most action happens. Like in Treasure Island, it was when Jim Hawkins and Long John Silver are about to fight with all the pirates, and they find the hole where the buried treasure was, but then they get saved by Dr. Livesey and Gray and Ben Gunn. Okay, that's the climax of that story, and it was definitely clear and interesting. Okay, so those are all the things that you should have thought about, or now that you have finished writing it, hopefully, you can go back and try and add some of these things if you haven't already. But the section we're planning today is the conclusion. Okay, it's just one row in this rubric. It says the conflict is resolved clearly and creatively. So remember, after the climax, everything is resolved. You kind of figure out, okay, well, how did my characters end up? What's the happy ending for my character? Okay. Then everything down here is just language kind of stuff, figurative language, dialogue, stuff like that. Let's not worry too much about that. I want you to worry about finish writing your body paragraphs if you haven't already, and writing your conclusion paragraph. Okay. So if you want to tear out this rubric and have that on the side as you finish your writing, that would be a great idea. But if we go back to lesson 16 pages, it's on page 143, and there's this chart that will help you with planning a conclusion. Okay? And remember, if you want to pause this video at any point and go back and find your story, finish writing a little bit, and then come back and, you can go back and forth. This video is kind of a jumble of everything, so pause it as you need to finish your writing, okay? So your conclusion of your story is after the climax, after, all the adventure happens, how is your story going to end? It can't just end right away, right? Think of Treasure Island. If the end of that story was just like, oh, well, Dr. Livesey and Ben Gunn, they shot the pirates and that was it. We wouldn't have read about the whole resolution. We wouldn't have read about how Ben Gunn found the treasure a long time ago and hidden it in his cave, and Dr. Livesey found Ben Gunn, and they went and once they saved Long John Silver and Jim Hawkins, they went back to the cave, transported all the treasure to the ship. They marooned those 3 pirates on the island for their safety. They got back home to England, and then we learned how some of them spent their money and how the rest of their lives kind of played out. So all of that is the conclusion of Treasure Island. Okay? So we need that for your story. It can't just end at the climax. So the first question in this chart that you need to answer here in this box is, where is the main character at the end of the story? So where does your main character end up? Okay? The next question is, how is the problem or conflict resolved? For this one, for Treasure Island, it would have been, Dr. Livesey saves the day with Ben Gunn, and they return back to England on the ship with the treasure. That's how the problem was resolved. That's how they solved their problem. Next question, does the conclusion tie back to the introduction? If so, how? So maybe you can tie back into your hook, how you hooked your reader in your introduction. Or maybe you return back to the initial setting of your story. Because at the very beginning of Treasure Island, they were in England at the Admiral Benbow Inn. So at the end of the story, they return back to England. So it ties back into the introduction of Treasure Island. So your conclusion doesn't have to tie back into the introduction. So you can answer the question, you can say, no, it doesn't tie back into the introduction, and that's fine. And then the last question on this page is, choose a memorable image or piece of dialogue to end the story. So that's how they end Treasure Island. If I find the last chapter real quick. Remember, I've read this chapter like 5 times, so I memorized it. This last paragraph that Jim Hawkins wrote for Treasure Island, It says, there's still more treasure hidden on that island, some silver bars and some weapons that Flint buried. But nothing could tempt me back there. My worst dreams I ever have are when I hear the waves booming, or when I bolt straight upright in bed, the voice of Captain Flint the parrot ringing in my ears. Pieces of 8, pieces of 8. So, for the conclusion of Treasure Island, they did both of these things. They chose memorable images, like silver bars and weapons that are still buried, and waves booming on the ocean. That's all imagery. And dialogue. The parrot saying pieces of 8. So, Jim is saying that he has nightmares where he hears the bird saying that. Okay, so they ended their story with dialogue and imagery, but you can choose either or. So pick a memorable image, like the treasure and waves and stuff, or dialogue to end your story. And how will you do that on your story, okay? So pause this video, fill out that page. Okay, after that is talking about titles. And I would write your conclusion before we talk about titles. So after you've finished your whole story, so the introduction paragraph, the body paragraphs, because that's the chunk of your story, so all of your story, the rest of it, however long that's going to be, and then your conclusion should be at least one paragraph. So after you've finished your whole story, then we can talk about titles. So if you need to pause this video or turn it off for the rest of the day and finish writing your story right now, that's what you should go do. You can use the planning page we were just on. The back of it is blank. You can write your conclusion on this piece of paper right here. Or if you have a bunch of lined paper where you've been writing your story, finish it, and then we'll talk about titles. Okay, so goodbye until you finish your story. Go write your story. See, it's hard for me at home because I can't tell if you've written your story or not. Just got to take your word for it, I guess. I'm going to continue the video assuming you have finished your story now. So if not, go back and finish it. The introduction, the body, and the conclusion. Okay, once your story is finished, the whole thing, start to finish, is all written and all done, and it's like at least 2 pages long. Then we are talking about titles of stories. And these are all the chapter titles from Treasure Island. Okay, so chapter 1 was titled The Old Sea Dog and the Black Spot. Chapter 2 was The Sea Chest and the Blind Man. Chapter 3 was The Real Adventure Begins, and so on, all the way to the end. Chapter 9, The Adventure Comes to an End. Okay, so all great chapter titles. We're gonna kind of discuss some of the chapter titles so that you can plan your own story title, okay? So first question in the chart. What do you notice about the capitalization of words in each title? So which words are capitalized, which words are not? Okay, in my class, we talked a little bit about this as you guys were writing different stories and different writing examples throughout the year. Okay, so the first word in a title is always capitalized, right? Those are all capitals. But there's a lot of other capitalized words in the title as well. Okay, I'm going to highlight words that are not capitalized. Okay, the old sea dog, black spot, those are capitalized, but and the are not. Same here. Everything's capitalized there. What I heard in the apple barrel, the man on the island, the plan, shiver me timbers, my life hangs in the balance, the adventure comes to an end. Okay, so see all the short words, all the conjunctions or articles or prepositions, those are all lowercase. And the, in the, on the, in the, to, an. Okay, those are all lowercase. So all the words are capitalized except for conjunctions, the, and prepositions, like on, in, over. Okay, so all the words are capitals, or capitalized, except for conjunctions, prepositions, and articles. Okay, so some words that are not capitalized. And, the, on, in, to, and. Okay, so there's certain words that do not get capitalized in a title, but most of them are capitalized words. Just these short little words and the, on, in, little words like that are not capitalized. The exception is I. That's a short little word, right? But I is always capitalized. If it's just the word I, it's always capitalized, right? Okay. Examples. All right, second question. How many words are there in the longest title? So I'm going to count. Let's find the longest title. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that one has 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That one also has 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. That one also has 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so the longest title has 7 words. Your title should be shorter than that. Okay, the title of your whole story should be less than 7 words. Your title equals less than 7 words. Any more than that, and it starts to just, like, you're just describing the whole story. You're just writing a sentence, okay? So these aren't sentences. The old sea dog and the black spot. That's just the subject. There's no predicate. I don't need a complete sentence. I just need something interesting that's less than 7 words that kind of pulls you in, okay? The man on the island. That's mysterious. Now I want to read more about the man on the island. So I just need some kind of short chapter, or not chapter, story title. And then this one is just your opinion. Which title is your favorite and why? So out of all the chapters 1 through 9, which one of these is your favorite title, not your favorite chapter? Okay, maybe the last chapter was your favorite chapter, but maybe the title of it isn't. So which title is your favorite? And tell me why that's your favorite down here, okay? Oh, there's more on the back, sorry. Okay. Which title of those seems most mysterious and why? And then I'm gonna cross out this last one. New question. Or prompt, write the title of your adventure story. Okay. So which one is most mysterious out of those 9 chapter titles? And then right here is your space to write the title of your adventure story that you came up with. Okay. All right, pause it there if you need to. Finish writing your question answers and your title. On this page is the continuation of lesson 17. So this is your editing checklist. Editing. This is everything you should include to make sure that all your grammar, punctuation, capitalization, everything is correct. Okay, so here are all the things you need to do, and then you put a check mark here after you've made sure in your story that you've done that. Okay? So there's things like all my sentences have a subject and a predicate. Double check all your sentences that they are complete sentences, and then you put a check mark over here. Okay? I included all the words I wanted to write. Some of you guys have a tendency to go too fast in your writing and you accidentally skip words, so your sentences don't make sense. So read it out loud, double check that, and then put a check mark here. So double check all of that. Paragraphs are indented. Ooh, that's a good one. I'm betting a lot of people forgot to indent their paragraphs. That's the 2-finger space before you write the first line in your paragraph. Title. We just came up with a title. Is your title at the top on the front of your story? Begin each sentence with a capital. Capital letters for proper nouns like names and places. I bet I could get a couple of you guys for that. Double check spelling of your words. Have somebody else look over your story for you and have them check the spelling for you. Okay, so editing checklist. This is the last step. After you edit, after you double check everything's perfect, you can go through and write a final copy or type a final copy even. If you have a computer at home or if you have one of the school Chromebooks that you guys checked out, you can type up a final draft after you've done all this editing, and that would be fantastic. You could even email it to me, and I would love that, or share it with me on Google Docs, and I would love to read your stories. If not, just edit your rough draft and make sure that you turn it in to me. So that was lessons 15, 16, 17, 18 was supposed to be writing a final draft, and then 19 was supposed to be sharing it with our neighbors, which, you know, hopefully you can share it with somebody at your house. All right, that's everything. Final video for Treasure Island. That was a long one. Okay, good luck. Have fun writing your adventure stories if you haven't finished them. Bye, guys.